Welcome to the Theater of Others podcast. My name is Adam Marple, and I'm the co-artistic director of the Theater of Others. With the COVID-19 pandemic forcing a shutdown and reevaluation of space and gathering, we at the Theater of Others are thinking about what stories we need and how best we can share them. We believe space is psychology, and it informs the way in which an audience interacts and reacts to what is presented to them. We create uniquely theatrical events in bespoke sensory performance spaces crafted to encourage curiosity and grant the audience permission to commune with the play. Now that space has moved online, how can we encourage interaction and action amongst an audience virtually? The Theater of Others produces plays that both welcome and challenge the audience. We are committed to international collaboration and are a laboratory that helps artists grow through intensive study of their craft. The Theater of Others creates a shared community of artists and audiences for the purpose of exploring the most profound issues of our lives and times. We believe the play watches the audience. The audience is necessary, and they are witness to what happens. And you get to be witness to us making that happen. The purpose of this podcast is to open up our process and let you in. We're peeling back the curtain, so to speak, and encouraging you to follow along, to ponder, prod, and question, to join us and criticize us if need be. Being a witness is no passive task, and it requires much from you. Are you up for the journey? On the podcast today from Melbourne, Australia, are co-artistic directors Budi Miller and myself in Cairo, Egypt. This podcast contains explicit language. Hi, Budi.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
I've got
so
my
shiny.
my 70s. It's my 70s, 80s disco. It's my
Sparkle.
Soul Train, Sparkle,
Soul Train.
Xanadu.
Yeah, you got a soul glow going on right now.
Y'all need to go to YouTube right now and just look at how fantastic I look. It's what happens when I'm in a gay gay premises. The premises, the gay domicile.
Environs. You're in a gay environs.
Environs. The gay environs.
Yeah.
I'm in the gay environs. I'm at my best friend's house, Miss Changela.
Mm-hmm. We're in the same time zone for the first time in a long time.
Wow, we're in the same time zone,
but still thousands of miles apart.
We're still thousands of miles apart. We can never be.
But
in the
not
same
in my
city.
heart. But not in my heart. You're always here in my heart.
Deep in the heart of Adam.
Exactly. Yep.
How's Georgia?
It is still here. It is still a part of the Union.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then
I went to a baseball game today.
How was that?
Yeah. Well, I could care less about baseball. I mean, actually, I could probably care less. I have just this amount of caring that I have, and I could probably care less about that. But I have very little caring for baseball. But I always enjoy an audience. Why? Because it's the sport that I played when I was little, and I hated every second of it.
Oh, wow. I need to see Little League pictures.
Oh, I've got a lot of Little League pictures. I was very cute. I was very cute sitting on the ground waiting for nobody to hit the ball to right field in Little League.
Why? Because no one was that good?
No, it's everybody's right hand, so they're going to hit it to left field or something like that. Whatever the opposite of every single kid hits the ball, that's where I was sat. Anyway, I hate baseball, and I grew up in a baseball town with a very, very popular baseball team, and my entire family loves baseball. Anyway, long story short.
What's the baseball team?
I'm trying to get to the point what I'm actually talking about. I'm not talking about baseball. You want to talk about baseball.
I want to know about the baseball team.
I didn't realize you were into sports.
Your famous baseball team. What's your famous baseball team?
The Atlanta Braves. Who has been in the playoffs for the past...
They haven't changed their name? They're still called the Braves?
No, they are endorsed by the Cherokee Nation. The Cherokee Nation actually led a whole thing today before they sung the national anthem and did a whole thing. So,
ooh,
yeah.
So they're owned by a Cherokee
They're not
Nation.
owned. They're not owned by the Cherokee Nation. They're endorsed by the Cherokee Nation. Long
Okay.
story short, I didn't care about the baseball game. I was looking at the audience. You know me, I'm fascinated by audiences. So I
That's
was
true.
just I was just watching what it was that got them all excited about being there and the experience of what they were going through. And I was sat in my uncle's box seats, so they just kept giving me alcohol all afternoon
Ooh.
long. So that definitely helped.
Oh
That
wow.
was
So you're buzzed. Do you see you get your sip on?
yeah. I got my sip on after the sixth margarita. I told the lady I gotta stop. I gotta walk out of here. It was pretty
I gotta
pretty great.
I gotta go to school. I gotta go to
I
school.
gotta go to
Gotta go to
school.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. 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 I love
I
it.
love it. I love it. I
Well,
love it.
I just got back from the theater.
Nice, very nice.
Yes, I just got back from the theater and I was taken care of, y'all. I was taken care of in the theater. It has been
Lovely.
decades since I've had an experience on the New York stage with this feeling.
Great.
It's so delicious. We went and saw The Comeuppance by Brendan Jacob Jenkins, directed by Eric Ting.
Lovely.
So good. And there's some of my students are in it.
Of course.
Of course.
Well, I mean, we're getting to the
uh,
point where where like we have taught so many people. It's hard not to have somebody we've taught or is a
girl.
friend of ours.
Well, it's such a beautiful experience because when you see your students like Brittany Bradford and Susanna Flood in a production like this, they're just it's okay. So this is what happened. I just witnessed a play where the writer, the actors, the directors, and design team took care of us for 2 hours and 10 minutes without any intermission and held us from beginning to the end. And it was oh, divine. Y'all have got to go see The Comeuppance. It's 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 Brendan Jacob Jenkins' new work at the Signature Theater. It is so good. It is so good. And I'm being ambiguous because I want y'all to have your own experience with it. But I am giving it an A plus 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 plus. It's been decades since I've been moved in this way. So I'm really in a good place. And this is and Galtney. Galtney was like, I have never been to a play that actually reflected me because it's his generation. Like it's literally his generation.
Mm.
Like he's like they are literally speaking to me. This I said, "Well, welcome to being old. You're finally at an age that you can fill an audience with your story."
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, good. You're finally old. Good. Now we're all old together."
I saw a play last night too.
What you see?
I saw The Humans by Stephen Karam.
How was it?
The writing, okay, so it's a couple things. So this was uh so full disclosure, this was a comp ticket. This was given by my friend Matt Torney, who I went to grad school with, who's the artistic director of Theatrical Outfit.
Okay,
And
you
so
can still
this is
talk
all
bad about it if it's a bad
I'm
show.
no, no, I'm not going to talk bad about. I'll talk a little bit about some thorns, but the roses. The writing is really really good. I mean,
Yeah, I heard it's an amazing play.
it hits hard, and
Ooh,
especially like I'm sure everybody in the audience must have felt that they were talking. It was like directly their experience, but like I'm just a couple of things hit me. Like there's a grandmother who has dementia. My grandmother here has dementia. Um, Everybody in the family has lost their job. Everybody around me is not in their jobs right now.
wow.
It's I mean it was amongst other things. there was just this sense of like life is hard, and I don't know how we continue on. Um, it was really, really, really beautiful writing. And there was a friend of mine that I hadn't seen since 2006 that I went
In
to
it,
governor's school with. And so it was
they were
lovely
in
to
the show.
see they were in the show. And so it was really lovely to kind of see that and see an Atlanta audience and be inside of a different feeling and a different city and a different way of listening and watching and really kind of, again, I've just spent 2 days observing audiences, but yeah, it's a it's a really interesting play, really beautiful writing.
How many
A
characters?
bit.
It's a big cast, isn't it?
It is one, two, three, four, five, five people, six people.
Oh,
No, no, no. Very, very small. Very small play. Yeah,
oh,
it's good. It
okay.
was up for the Pulitzer. It won the Tony Award for Best Play 2017 or something like that. It is white, very, very white, but I don't see why it has to be. I don't see anything about it that requires it to be, other than it is being portrayed by white people. Um, and written by, I'm not sure what his ethnicity is, but there's nothing in it that distinctly requires or specifies race. So by default, it usually goes white, of course.
Mm-hmm. Because they're
Hmm.
the only humans.
Hmm. Right, exactly. But it's a beautiful play. Check it out and read it. It's really good. And I will wait for the
Any
comeuppance.
thorns? And the thorns?
Uh it took me about 20 25 minutes to for them to warm up and to,
Oh,
I mean, it's, but not in a, I mean, like, it was mostly a voice thing. It was mostly a thing of like, I felt like they were shouting, and it felt like then they settled into what the sound of the space was going to be. This is like their third weekends of playing. So,
wow! This
um,
is the exact opposite of what I was experiencing.
yeah,
There was no shouting.
yeah. But then it's, then it settled, or we, the audience, trained our ears to what it needed to sound like. And then, it was really, it was lovely. It was, yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't have too many. It's been a while since I've been at the theater, so I can't really say anything about it. So
It's been a while.
it's been a while for sure. Yeah, there was a whole pandemic and a move to Egypt. So there was a lot of
So, okay,
nuts in the
question:
theater.
did they have any pandemic themes in this script?
No, no, because this was
So
written
this was written
pre-pandemic.
before. Okay.
This was pre-pandemic, but there was a lot of 9/11 themes in it,
Okay.
which was interesting. Yeah.
Did they age well? Did the 9/11 themes age well?
Yeah, because it wasn't it was written 2017, and it was referring to when 9/11 happened, not like it was recent, like,
When?
they had survived the towers, and so that was fresh in kind of their zeitgeist. They're talking, they're talking about Hurricane Sandy and things like that. So it was, yeah.
When 9/11 happened, Adam?
Why are we doing this? Why are we stressing
Exactly.
the
Why?
the what sound?
Because you need to make sure that people understand what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
I'm not going to be that person.
Why? I want you to be erudite.
Why?
Why? I want you to
Why, white
bring.
man?
Why, white man? Where? For where are you, white man? Why are you talking like that, white man?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to.
Wow, okay, it's a lot of work, right?
Too much.
Too much. Well, I the direction of this show is actually really really good.
Mm, hmm. I'm glad.
Because um, Chan was even talking about how beautifully it was directed because the set actually became like a part of the set was a member of the cast and it
As
was
it
this
should be.
supernatural world and it was just so beautifully like there was like no separation between the audience and the performers on stage like and what was really interesting is that like because of the choices that the director made with the style of how the actors were listening and talking. Like when things like really hit, I they hit my insides and
Mm,
not my brain. Like I literally had organ responses to different moments,
yeah,
which was really cool. It was really
that's
really
nice.
cool. That was really cool.
Those are the
You
best.
know, and I live for a good director. That's why I keep you close
That's the only reason. Yeah,
for your direction,
yeah, yeah,
so you can direct me.
yeah,
You see what I did there?
yeah. I saw it coming.
It's
I
beautiful,
think
isn't it?
everybody is trained for this at this point. There's a shift. There's a shift in your voice that happens. They
Oh,
they, they hear it
I do a
coming.
little, I do a little resonance change,
Exactly.
a change my resonance,
Changement. Yeah.
changement.
hmm
Well, what are we going to be talking about today, Adam Marple?
We're back in book club land, and we are talking about our is it a third book, fourth book, fourth book.
This is our fourth book.
It's our fourth book. This is Anne Bogart's A Director Prepares 7 Essays on Art and Theater. This is my second pick for our book
Yes,
club.
yes.
Yes.
And why is this your second pick, Adam
Well,
Marple?
all of our books are the.
Well,
There's no H there. Shut up. God. All of our books are the books that were influential in our lives and at some point um, made us the artists that we are today. And um, yeah, I think probably this book, more than anything else, and the person around this book uh, exemplifies that story for me. I realized, I use this in my viewpoints class to kind of instigate conversation
mhm.
after training, um, and I picked it when picking it up to read it for this. I started thinking about when I first read it, and it came out in 2001. It came out in 2001, and I read this in college for a class just like I do with my class, and I have all of my notes in it, and it's all highlighted
Wow.
from 21
Wow.
year old Adam here. So it's amazing to see my
And
thoughts, my thought
how
process.
close were you in understanding what Anne was writing?
Well, at the time, I mean, like literally, I have things written in the margins, lots of highlighting, and just lots of exclamation points. It was blowing my mind when I read it. Just like, what? Oh, yes, that's exactly what I've been thinking. How do I do that? Oh my God, what? What? When? How? How do you do that? Um, and so it's obviously it's stuck with me for a long, long time. Um, it's been very, very influential in me. And then even rereading it again this time. Um, because I'm not the same person. Obviously, we're not. It's the Heraclitus River. Um, the different chapters are hitting me in different ways. So like my favorite chapter before was chapter 2, violence, but now it's the last chapter, resistance, that I need to hear, that I need to work on, and I need to play with. So it was really great to dip back into this and see 20-year-old Adam have a conversation with 43-year-old Adam.
43. He's 43, y'all.
Yeah,
He's the same age as my sister.
that's right.
43, 1980, y'all. Well, look, I I have to admit, it has taken me three reads to sink into this one
Really?
because it's not written in a way that an actor thinks. It's written in a way that a director thinks.
Yeah.
So as I started, I literally had to like shift my practical brain as an actor to my practical brain as a director,
Mm,
because also that the way in which she's discussing these title chapters are in this kind of like, the words seem simple, but the philosophy around it feels very complicated,
Yes.
and it almost to the point was overcomplicated for me,
Okay.
where I had to like, okay, I literally have read this book 3 times because I had to keep going back into it because it was my assignment was to read the book, and I was just like, why do I keep drifting? And but what was really interesting is that there's a lot of philosophies that Anne espouses that I wholeheartedly speak about myself, which is
Yeah.
it, which is really exciting to read as well. But I actually had to just change the lens from which I was reading it from.
Yeah.
Um, and so once I was able to do that, I was able to glean a conversation with her,
Yes.
because I feel like it's more of a conversation than actual practice. It's
Yeah.
and that's where I was like, that's where I kept getting shut. I was like, as an if I read it as an academic, I can go right into it. I can go, okay, well, that's okay. I see what references she's using. I see the historical things that she's bringing up. I see and what she's negotiating with, and also you go into, you know, the time that it was written. You know, like this was written, you know, 22 years ago. You
Yeah.
know, a lot has happened in theater since
Obviously.
then, right?
Obviously. Yeah.
um and so yeah, so that's was my initial take
Yeah.
on the experience of reading the book.
Yeah.
So so why resistance now, Adam? Why was the resistance section
Well,
that's
before
the part you
before we
needed to?
get there, I just want to comment on what you just said because, um, yes, everything that we've had up until now has been a practical book.
Mm,
Impro, um, backwards and forwards, and to the actor are all things that you can instantly take into your practice and your work and your rehearsal room. And then this is a philosophy book. This is
yeah,
what this. I mean, there is nothing practical about directing in this book,
yeah,
really. I mean, there are ways of being, there are ways of operating in the world based off of philosophy. It's like saying, uh, like I know the days that I have meditated, and I know the days that I haven't meditated because the way I operate in the world. And it's kind of how I feel about this book is like there are days when I understand the concepts and the philosophies that she talks about in this book, and I use them and I incorporate them in my life, and there are days where I don't. And that's what I mean. So like why resistance hits now is, um well, I had read this before I went to Columbia, where despite the incredible amount of money that I was having to pay for it, I was in the shittiest of conditions. And the entire chapter is saying, um, use what you have. I mean, that whole last paragraph
yeah. Read
is
the
just a
last paragraph. 'Cause
yeah,
it's really
it's phenomenal.
whole. Read it.
Yeah. Your attitude towards resistance determines the success of your work and your future. Resistance should be cultivated. How you meet these obstacles that present themselves in the light of any endeavor, it determines the direction of your life and career. Allow me to propose a few suggestions about how to handle the natural resistance that your circumstances might offer. Do not assume that you have to have some prescribed conditions to do your best work. Do not wait. Do not wait for enough time or money to accomplish what you think you have in mind. Work with what you have right now. Work with the people around you right now. Work with the architecture you see around you right now. Do not wait for what you assume is the appropriate, stress free environment in which to generate expression. Do not wait for maturity or insight or wisdom. Do not wait till you are sure that you know what you are doing. Do not wait until you have enough technique. What you do now, what you make of your present circumstances, will determine the quality and scope of your future endeavors. And at the same time, be patient. And so, yeah, just to remind myself of that as I get in my stressful, anxious days, as we have a big project coming up, as we, are shifting into new energies with the company. Like it's just good to hear that and remind myself of like, right, of course, this is the point. All of this is the point. So that's why
Right
resistance.
now, right now
Yeah,
is the point. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, that's why it hit me so much more, so much better now. I think.
And we also, that's something that we as a company have always done. It's like, okay, so what are we going to do right now? So what can we do now?
Yeah,
We've got these artists, we've got this writer, we've got this medium. What are we going to do right now? You know, and and that's how the company really became, the theater of others. Was we needed to do something. It was like, okay, let's do it.
yeah,
Let's not sit back and dream about it and talk about it. And if whatever resources we need, we can figure it out. But
yeah,
let's go. you know um I think, for me, so it's interesting because I think the first chapter that really stood out to me was stereotype. Was the first one.
yeah,
And and just thinking about the word stereotype and how she talks around stereotype, and when stereotype becomes dangerous and when stereotype becomes riveting,
yeah,
and it all comes down to specificity and embodiment,
yeah,
because to fully embody a stereotype is to transform into the world of that the stereotype grows from.
yeah,
But to do it in a cliche, superficial way is dangerous,
right,
and it is offensive.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's a really and it's I like it because she's using this word stereotype that often gets a bad rap.
yeah,
And I think that it's like when Saturday Night Live is really good, it's when they get that stereotype down,
right,
right?
right, yeah.
And then when it's like, oh, that was just so ugh. It's because they hit a stereotype or a trope that we get it, but it's like,
It's like they're just
eh,
really just using it to make fun of. Like
yeah,
they're just taking the surface skim thing. It's like they're not a good actor doing this. They're just
yeah,
it's just the joke. But right, because when she's talking about stereotype here, she really could rename this. She could change it a little bit and rename this archetype because that's what she's
yeah,
moving
yeah,
toward that territory, right?
yeah,
And that reminded me of all of our conversations about archetype and character.
yeah,
And that's what she's talking about because
yeah.
stereotype has gotten that bad stigma around it, rightfully so in our society. But for the actor, for the stage, you have to think about archetype, you have to think about stereotype, and you have to move beyond the societal understanding of that word to go back to the etymological understanding of that word and how you, as an artist, use that because we're all coming in with it. We're all coming in with every single version of Romeo and Juliet we've ever watched. We're all coming in with every single, insert the name of the play that you've seen 1,000 times. And then what do you do? How
But
do
I
you
like
boil
the word
past that?
stereotype. The reason why I like the word stereotype versus archetype can get into this, like, can be so broad,
Hmm.
and that stereotype gives you permission to be specific.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's like when you're dealing with an actor, a young actor who doesn't know what transformation feels like, and you're dealing with a seasoned actor who knows what who knows what embodiment feels like. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, like, a young actor will play a stereotype, but not understand how to fulfill the specificity of the stereotype that they're playing.
mm,
And a seasoned actor will drop into embodying the stereotype to give them permission to do all of the gesticulations, the sounds, and that come out of the vocal tract, and the emotions that ensues in the storytelling and pursuing an objective. And it's like, but with an archetype, it can go into this broad place that will almost make you feel like your archetype is bigger than the moment of what's happening right now.
right,
If you've never worked with archetype work,
yeah,
if you're just reading a book and you're talking about like this is also why I have issues with psychological gesture. Like you read what happens in psychological gesture and Michael Chekhov's books, and you try it out. It still is stiff and doesn't have its sense of permeability and negotiation that happens in real life.
Mm,
And you need to have a practitioner that understands this world to help guide you through it. So reading the language in a book is really it's a very special gift to get people to think about a word and have the word actually do what you wanted to do in your conversation. So I think
mm,
stereotype is a really interesting one because be, for the very reason that we know what it is and we have a visceral response to it, but then
mm,
we can have a conversation around the different versions of stereotype and with the type of stereotype that she's looking for in directing actors.
mm, mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
So I think the and but that's why I think that like her her chapter titles are complicated because we all have a very particular relationship to the words that she's using,
Yeah.
because when she's talking about memory, she she's talking about history,
Mm,
she's talking about dramaturgy,
right.
and then she weaves in that theater is a memory. Like, so then it's like, okay, you're you're having all these different versions of memory that you're talking about, but are you actually talking about history, and are you talking about the memory that's left on the stage from what you've learned? So it's like that's why it took me three reads, you know and why
Mm,
you read it once every year.
yeah,
you know and I love the short history lessons that she's given us around the theater
yeah,
of like it's succinct enough to give you an understanding of why you have whatever particular aesthetic of theater that you have developed in yourself,
right.
why I like the theater that I like.
Yeah,
And she gives you these really great examples. And then she talks about what we talk about, what would have happened if the expressionists actually were able to
had held
have a
on and
stronger hold on
right,
the American culture than the imported mistranslation of the Stanislavski system.
right. Yeah. What if that had happened? What if the House on American Activities had not had happened? If
Yeah.
there wasn't a giant gap in the middle of the 20th century in
And
American
then,
theater?
right, because of McCarthyism, right? So then
Yeah,
people were afraid to actually have agitprop theater because they would be blacklisted. So to even have a political voice, you
yeah,
know, was dangerous for an artist,
yeah,
because of the government, because of the U.S. government. So it's like it's all interesting, and also to see the journey that American theater has taken. So if you really want to have a good understanding of kind of the in a succinct way,
yeah.
the memory chapter starts off quite well with that. And then I found the transition from that world into theater being a memory, the definition of theater being a memory. I feel like it was a big jump. I
Mm.
get what she's saying, but it just felt like a really big
It
leap.
needed to be another chapter. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, when she wrote this again, this was 2000 2001.
And this was the
Um,
first one. This was the first. This
this
is
is
the
the first
first
one
of all of
of
them.
all of
Yeah.
them. Yeah, and she didn't know that there were going to be other ones coming out. So like obviously, uh, an actor prepares or no, a director prepares, and then you act as the second one. What's the story is the third one, and her last one that came out last year, 2 years ago,
Resonance.
Reson the Art of Resonance. Yeah, she didn't know what she was doing, but she does the same thing. She goes deeper, and she just takes one kind of philosophical thought of the theater and kind of goes deep in it. So, yeah, I think memory should have been two possible chapters: memory and history.
Yeah.
Um,
It should be history and then memory,
yeah,
because then that would be a really nice segue. If you start with history and then you go into memory, I think that feels better as opposed to trying to clump them all into memory.
Yeah. What's interesting is this again. This came out in 2001, but this was written in 2000 because it's interesting. The next book, which came out in 2007, I believe, mentions like it's very 9/11 specific. Like she's writing this right out of coming out of 9/11, um, where everybody in New York at least is thinking, what is art? What are we making? Why are we making it? What is the point? I mean, it's very kind of how we felt during the pandemic. Um, so it's really kind of interesting to see, but it like whereas this one doesn't have, this is dated a bit. The 2007 book is very dated. It's very right after 9/11, and you can't get
Mhm.
away from that fact, even though it's still a good book. Um, so yeah, it's very interesting to have kind of her thought process pre 9/11, post 9/11, um, and her thoughts of history and political theater before and after, because it's very mixed. It's very changed in that respect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's clear. It's clear that it holds up, to what it was, but
Mhm.
it could use a beautiful little revision with a new chapter added.
I think so.
And if you're listening,
Anne's been on the podcast, but I'm not sure she's listening anymore.
she might be. You never know. She might be. You never
She could
know.
be. She
Because
could
Oprah's
do.
listening. Oprah's
Oprah's
listening.
listening. It's true.
Anne Bogart's listening.
Exactly. We've got Oprah, Beyonce, Anne Bogart, Brene Brown, uh,
Kim Coles.
mhm. Cynthia Erivo.
Oh, she better don't be listening. Fantasia.
Fantasia Barrino. You can listen. You can listen to us, Fantasia.
Fantasia. We love you, Fantasia. Oh, we should get Coleman to come on.
Who? Oh, Coleman.
Coleman
Yes.
Domingo.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
We should get Coleman.
He's what did I just saw him. He's advertised to be in something. What was it going to
Color
be?
Purple. He's Mr. in Color
Yes,
Purple.
of course. Yes. God, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Call him up. There's your assignment.
I will. I'll call him up. Get Coleman
Great.
on here.
Good.
So, what other chapters do you resonate with in this read?
Violence is still good. Violence was my favorite chapter when I read it the first time. Because this one definitely is a young director's chapter. Um, Now I feel like it's still good, but like I've been there, done that. I can move past this idea of violence, and violence. Again, these words are very charged. When really what she means is choice. Make a
I was
choice.
just about to say that. I was just about
Just
to say that.
just make a choice.
I was literally just about to say that. I was
It's-
like, yeah, like she's saying that violence is, art is violent. So
yeah,
it forces you to have to be in the choices that the artist has, that is requiring your body to be in.
yeah,
You know, putting an actor in a chair on stage and putting that's a violent act.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, it's a
Very
choice. It's a choice,
it's
man.
very charged language. I mean, this is where we get our kill your babies.
Hmm.
It's like the idea of you put the actor in that chair, you have killed all other choices,
Yeah,
but it's still just a choice. It's if
yeah,
you choose that, you're not choosing that. But the thing
yeah,
is, you could always go back and just choose that instead. So it's
yeah,
not violence. And I would hate to think of a young director going into a room and going, now I have to kill this choice, and I'm gonna kill your choices too. Yeah, no.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel the same way about eroticism. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, so I feel like eroticism is like hyperbolic a bit.
it's just
When
attraction.
it's this attraction, it's
Yeah,
it's listening, it's receiving, it's observing and being clear, and what is pulling you in, you know.
yeah.
But eroticism,
I feel like her editors must have been like, you want to try a different these titles aren't buzzwordy enough. We're not going to get the likes on Facebook. It's very kind of you know They're not popping. Terror.
I
Talk about
mean,
terror.
embarrassment. You mean improvisation?
Right. You mean presence? You mean,
Yeah, I feel like the titles of the chapters need to have a a revamp.
yeah.
They are a bit hyperbolic. Um, so what chapter do you think, other than, because you already said violence is good for the young director, what other chapters do you think are really good for the young director, for the new director?
I'm going to go back to resistance just because it's what's working for me now. It really is. Um, it's not. This is going to sound like an old man. Uh, this generation. No, it's every generation. Every generation has its difficulties, but the world is in a very particular and weird place now that uh, wasn't we never had to deal with. Anne's generation didn't have to deal with. The generation before that didn't have to deal with. They were not vying for attention like this generation is going to have to vie for attention. They were not fighting for um, they were not fighting against robots who were writing things. They were not fighting against CGI whatever. They were not fighting against, Russian bots. They were not. I mean, there's so much that is happening right now that has never happened before to any of us.
Yeah.
And I know that there can be a sense of anxiety, of depression, of what's the fucking point. And I think that resistance is a really great thing to kind of go back to and go, yeah, but that's what's going to make your art phenomenal. That's
Mm,
what's going to make what you make unique to your generation because you're having to deal with it. Whereas we had to deal with all these other things and we got to kind of we got to make our bones and we got to kind of sharpen our knife doing that stuff, and now we're having to kind of figure out how to live this life. But we've already kind of gotten to a point where like, oh, I've done enough things where like I know how to do it. But when you're starting out, when you don't have a space, when you don't have the money, when you don't even have the eyes of the people to come and see it, now what do you do besides the feeling of I've got to give up? And that resistance is actually what's going to make the work beautiful. The pushing past that and finding that. So again, it works. It's working wonders for me. I think every young artist needs to read this chapter again and again and again and again.
well, I think I actually like what's happening in eroticism, actually, there, because the toxic stuff that she talks about, the stuff that she talks about in tox with the like
Mm,
essentially toxu,
yeah,
that is her eroticism, theories,
yeah.
and I'm up for it. I'm up for it.
Which is why she was. I mean, it's interesting that she had never come across that before, and when she came to talk to us, she just instantly kind of like, tell me more, tell me more. I want to know more about this. And she's talking about it, from the back door without knowing about Taksu, at this point. But yeah, when we had her on the podcast, she was obsessed with that, and then she wrote a couple of blog posts about that as well. So yeah, eroticism that makes yeah
I love when
Taksu
she says the actor is completely dependent upon the creative potential of each audience member and must be able to adjust to and respond to whatever ensues. The
mm,
actor initiates, and the audience completes the circle with their imagination, memory, and creative sensibilities. Without a receiver, there's no experience. That is toxic for me. That's toxic. You
right.
cannot have toxu without an audience. They create something together, and the energy that's generated between the two of them is toxic. So she's talking about toxic.
Yeah, yeah. For me, theater doesn't exist until that happens. Right.
Yeah.
Rehearsing a play is not theater.
Yeah.
And if an audience gathers, that's not theater either. It's it's that interchange. It's that liminal space between the two where Toxu exists, where theater can begin. So our art cannot be an art. The ephemerality, which is so beautiful and terrifying about our art, the ephemerality of that exists in that liminal space between strangers,
Yeah.
um, and cannot be codified, explained, pointed at. Um, it's terrifying to try to explain to other people what that is because it can only be experienced.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
you only know it when you see it. It's as I know you've been writing about Toxu and talking about Toxu, but it's hard to talk about it. But as soon as you see it, you go, oh, there it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. She
yeah,
says quantum physics teaches us that the act of observation alters the thing observed. To observe is to disturb. To observe is not a passive verb. As a director, I have learned that the quality of my observation and attention can determine the outcome of a process. It is the contact response circle at the heart of live performance that makes being there so extraordinary. I mean,
it, if anybody who's been directed by me wants to understand why I'm always standing up and staring at you, this is this is where the influence comes from. I am I am always staring just right into your soul whenever you're doing. You're never going to get away from my gaze when this is happening. Yeah.
and then she talks about eroticism. She says the eroticism is created by the tension of attention, and attention is generated by interest. And interest is not something that can be faked. Not really.
Yeah.
So for me, that's not eroticism though.
No, that's attention.
That's attention.
It's attention. And the thing is, she does actually have a chapter in her second book called Attention, and it's much more along the lines of that. Again, buzzwords. You know,
Yeah.
and baby, we got to get some better chapter titles here. People aren't picking up the book. You know,
You know what
that's
I
what it
mean?
seems
You know
like.
what I mean? And baby, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Stick with me, bag. Stick
Yeah.
with me, kid. We'll go places. Stick with me. You'll be a household name in months.
Right. Exactly. After opening night, once the director, the playwright, and the designers have all gone away, the actor is left with a very particular daily dilemma: the quality of the relationship between the stage and the seats. The actor stands backstage and listens to the audience before making an entrance. The reaction, the reception is palpable. Listening to the listening, the actor makes adjustments in the speed of an entrance, the intensity of the first line spoken, or the length of a pause. An actor learns when to hold back and when to open up based on the agility of the audience.
Love it. I love
Hmm.
it. I mean, it just because those young actors that are afraid of an audience,
Yeah.
it's like that's really the training right there. It's it's what we do, Adam. We train actors to have a relationship with the audience,
Yeah.
and having that relationship with the audience is the most grounding feeling you could ever have. When you feel separate from the audience, it actually moves you away from what we are genetically designed to be, which is equals, which is to see each other, which is to be informed, listen, and interact with one another, which is to be communal. And the
Mm.
audience is a direct reflection of what that communal vibration of sharing and performing and creating art together and telling a story together and interacting through storytelling together. That's like we're genetically disposed to that quality of interaction with each other. So it's like when you're afraid of the audience, you're actually working against your nature,
Mm.
your human nature.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, especially with our last couple of episodes. We were talking about um, what the training for that 21st century actor needs to be, what the training needs to be if the group theater had never existed, if we had stayed in expressionism or moved past expressionism or whatever, what the training needs to be for the non film TV um, centric theater.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to it. And I was thinking about our last interview we had with Jen, where we were talking about this is an episode we have coming out, not has not come out yet, folks. So I'm going to talk about something that you're going to
Oh,
hear down the
oh,
road, but
you're giving. So they
little
need to listen
preview.
to that interview. They need to listen to
Exactly.
the interview with Jen,
They
definitely,
absolutely do
because
need to
Jen,
listen to that interview.
she's
Fantastic.
amazing.
But we were talking about
Remember who you are.
yeah, they were talking about what was it,
The African tribes, when there's a
the African
dispute in
tribes
the
who
in the community, that
yeah,
they bring the two people who are having a dispute, and the tribe circles the disputers individually and speaks to them, reminding them of who they are and how great they are, and how they're not this conflict, they're not this problem or this conflict, but there's so much greatness in them.
yeah,
And and then I said, wouldn't that's wouldn't that that's like the theater. Can you imagine a theater company that's their mission? And then Jen said, "Sign me up. I want to be there." And then
yeah,
you went into
philosophical land.
plus your eyes were up, and but I said, "Okay, Adam,
Yeah.
what's going on? What's going on?" And
So yeah,
he was
I've been
like,
thinking
"Mission
about it.
statement changes."
Yeah, well, that needs to come anyway. But I was thinking about that of the story of Plato in the cave. You know the story of Plato in the
I
cave?
do, I
Yeah.
do.
So audience, the idea is that imagine if you were a they use this word slave, but imagine that if you were someone who had been trapped inside of a cave,
Well, I think,
chained.
I think slave is actually an appropriate word for this metaphor, because you're a slave to your circumstances.
Right. Yeah. So you have been chained inside this cave against a wall, facing a wall the entire time, and behind you there's a fire. So you can see people walking in front of this fire. So you can see the shadows projected onto the wall, and so your entire conception of the universe are just these shadowy, blurry figures because there's nothing else that you've ever
Illusions.
seen. These
Hmm.
illusions, these just kind of blurs of whatever. But one day, one of you gets out and exits the cave and sees the world for what it is. Your eyes blinking, shining light. It's just so crazy. And you see color, and you see the sky, and you see the sun, and you feel the warmth of the sun, and you see animals, and you see people, and you've never seen any of these things before. And it's mind blowing, of course. And it's revelatory. And instantly the brain begins working in a way that's never been worked before. And in that moment, there's a choice that happens. Either you stay outside in that world, or
You go
the
back into the
heroic
cave.
thing. The heroic thing is going back into the cave and telling everybody else in the cave what
Yes,
you saw.
yes.
And so those two stories, I've been thinking about those two stories a lot in the last week, um, of what theater can do now, and what that type of storytelling and acting would need to be to do that. It's not a realistic naturalistic acting style that would do that, because that would not make any sense with a communal gathering
But
of
this is the
people.
thing, Adam, and this is what Galtney and I said today after seeing the play. We were shut down by this philosophy of that it can't happen in that style because they did it tonight. They did it tonight, and Galtney and I were like, "Fuck, they did it." We talk about all the time, like you can't do it in this style. It just won't happen. But they fucking did it. When you have actors a director and a team that aren't afraid to be normal
Well, yeah.
and to fall into like this poetry, this language, like it just was like Chan was talking about how it's like Tom Stoppard, like it was just but it was contemporary, and it was um it was millennial, like, and it was so delicious,
Hmm.
and it just soothed us. So then there really was no separation between us and the actors on the stage. And the moments of theatricality were the ones where it brought us into reminding us that we were watching theater when the set comes alive, when
Mm.
supernatural moments happen. But still in those supernatural moments, we're still being spoken to. Where
Yeah.
death is the character that's literally come as the messenger. Death is the
Mm.
messenger in this play. It's so we can do it. It's a rare thing. Like I said, it's been literally decades since I've had a moment like this in the theater, to where I learned something, I was moved, and I'm a better human being having experienced what I witnessed.
Nice.
But it's rare.
Yeah.
So you saying that it can't happen, I agree with you. It can't happen if all of those elements are not present.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of like we can't do naturalism or realism, but but we definitely it definitely needs to be a 80-20 situation in terms of how we train people and how we prepare an audience for it as well. Because they're
Yeah,
coming in with the stereotype of theater is naturalistic and realistic.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
it's our responsibility to unpack that for them
Yeah,
and
exactly,
change those minds.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time for provocations.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We need to rate it, and then we got
Oh,
provocations.
ooh. So are we gonna rate it now and then provocations, or are we gonna?
Yeah, yeah. Let's rate them quickly, and then we'll take a little break and come back for provocations.
Okay, so we could 1 to 5. Jack wants
Yeah.
us to go at the exact same time. Remember?
Okay.
So for the overall contribution of the
Yeah.
book to the world,
Yeah.
1 to 5.
Yeah.
Ready?
Hmm.
3, 2, 1.
5.
4.
I knew that. Yeah. I can't not give it 5. I love it. It's my favorite.
I
But
give
again,
and you know why I give it a 4.
I know. I know. Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Um, relevance of content, is that what the next one is?
Yeah. I think
Relevance of
so.
content for today.
I don't know if
What was
that's what
it?
we're going by, but sure.
Relevance. What relevance of content?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. 4.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our favorite chapter.
Yes.
Yours is resistance, and mine
Resistance.
is eroticism,
Eroticism. Yeah.
but not because of the word, which
Not
is
because of the word, which,
which is
usually
bizarre
what Budi
coming
goes
from
for.
me,
Right. Exactly.
because I am a child of Madonna.
Hmm.
Erotic, erotic, put your hands all over my body. Erotica, erotic. Okay, so let's take a break and then come back for some
Yeah.
provocations. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary conforming individuals, you're listening to the stereo sounds of JDB, Jack David Burmester. Wow, Jack. So good. Kookaburras? Kookaburras? Wow. He's so Australian. He knows
Yeah.
exactly where to put the kookaburras. He knows exactly
Exactly.
where to put them.
A lot
Exactly.
of people don't know what kookaburras sound like, and now you do.
And now we do. And now we do. So we're at provocations now, Adam Marple.
Yep. Yep.
Do you have any
Yeah.
provocations?
Of course you do. You ask me this every single time, and I always have something. Um, um,
What are your provocations? What and why?
well, my provocations for you, dear listener, are to look at what's in front of you right now. Look at the thing that you think is your biggest obstacle, and there may be several, and write them down and look at them and look at how they can become your greatest strength. And it takes a real mind shift. It takes a real reassessment. Um, to do this. And it's not a negation of your actual obstacle. It's not a understatement of the struggle that you have with it. But unless you can remove that obstacle is going to be there. So how can you use what is happening in the circumstances to your advantage? How can you use the fact that there is no money to make theater? What does that do for your artistic style? How can you use that there is no space to make theater? What is that going to do for your aesthetic? Um, Use the obstructions you have in front of you to the best of your ability to train with it now instead of waiting. There's a great movie by a problematic director called Lars von Trier called The Five
Mm,
Obstructions. And
mhm. Why
it
is he
is,
problematic? Why is he problematic, Adam?
well, he's said a lot of anti Semitic and misogynistic and homophobic statements, but
Mm-hmm.
he's also off his medication. So that's why he's problematic. He's problematic because, like, is he
Because he's a
not,
homophobic racist, anti-Semite.
or he's off his medication? You know, the same is
Oh,
Kanye.
so
I don't
he's
know.
Kanye. He's basically Kanye.
Exactly. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? We're not gonna question Kanye's artistry.
He's a
We're just
white
gonna
Kanye.
we're just gonna question his personality.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Lars von Trier, this is a documentary film that uh, he challenges his teacher from college, who was one of his mentors, one of the greatest directors, Danish directors, to recreate his seminal film in 5 new ways with 5 obstructions that Lars von Trier comes up. And he comes up with these crazier and crazier ways to make his mentor um, do the work again and again and again. And the director, I can't remember his name, but uh, the director basically is like, this, it can't be done, this is ridiculous, this is impossible, this is so insane. And then he does something better than the original version, and then he has to do it again. He's like, I can't, no, this is too far, this is too much. And then he does something better than he done before. And it's just a beautiful way of, like, looking at how artistry actually works when you engage with the obstruction instead of avoid the obstruction, or stop because the obstruction is there. When you actually engage with it, something beautiful can come out. Not at all what you thought it was going to be, but because the energy, the intensity of you actually dealing with it and engaging with it, even if it fails, something is learned and you come out better for it. So, 2 things: name your obstructions and deal with them, and then try and find the 5 obstructions and watch it. That's my provocation to you.
Wow. That's really good. That's really good. My provocation is pick a play that you want to direct. Find a play that moves you that you want to direct, and pick a chapter and apply a theory from one of these chapters to the play you want to direct, and see how you can take Anne's theories and actually make them applicable to something you want to make, and to give you a focus to make your ideas stronger. That's my provocation.
Good provocation.
Steal from the greats.
Yeah. And if you liked this book, she does have 3 more after this, so check those out
Holla.
as well. And they are more contemporary, and those titles make a little bit more sense. So,
Well, what's our next book, Adam?
well, our next book is a bit of a change from what we had originally announced. Not that everybody would know this, but we did a little switcheroo just because
Mm,
the book that we had
accessibility.
was a little bit difficult for for even me to find. So we made it a little bit more accessible, but this is still a very highly influential book in both of our lives, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So our next book for the month of July is going to be Steve Wong's Acrobat of the Heart.
Bing,
And
bing, 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 bing.
and longtime listeners will know that we had Steve on here.
Mm-hmm.
And some of you have even worked with Steve, so you know how
Mm-hmm.
influential he is in both of our lives and what an amazing artist he is.
And an
Um,
incredible writer.
an incredible writer as well. So we're looking forward to rereading An Acrobat of the Heart.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And that is a practical book. That is a practical book.
That is a very practical book, y'all.
Yeah,
Very
yeah, yeah.
practical book.
Yeah.
So, Marple, how would we know that they did these things?
Well, they're going to go to speakpipe.com/theater of others. Again, speakpipe.com/theater of others, theater with an R-E, theater of others, all one word. Leave a 90-second voicemail on there and let us know that you have read these books, that you have engaged with these thoughts, that you have heard these things, that you have questions back for these artists, these actors, these directors, these writers, and for us as well. And if you want to leave us an email, go to podcast@theaterofothers.com. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and our website.
Graham, y'all.
That's right. And the only way you're going to know about these teased interviews that are coming up, and we've got some really beautiful interviews, some really beautiful episodes coming up, is if they do what, Budi? How are they going to know about them?
Subscribe, 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 subscribe. We come to your inbox week. We send these out week. How you gonna know if you don't subscribe, 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 subscribe? Xanadu.
No.
And if you really like us, you can give us 5 stars. Just like my Uber driver. You give me 5 stars, I give you 5 stars. It's a win-win situation. It's an in-sum, zero-game sums thing.
Non-zero sum game.
It's a non-something sum game thing, Everybody win. And if you really like us, you want to give us more than 5 stars, you want to give us 6 stars, you want to give us 10 stars, you want to give us 100 stars, you can leave us a comment and then boost us up that algorithm from the top 5% podcasts of the world to the number 1 podcast of the world. And then when we get that, we'll be able to get Oprah.
That's right.
I guarantee.
Watch out, Joe Rogan. We're coming for you.
I'm coming for you, Joe Rogan.
This little outfit right here.
We got it going on.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yes. And we're in the same time zone.
I know. We're going to be on the same continent for a little while.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I love you so much.
I love you too.
See you next week.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
And for y'all, we'll be in your inbox next week. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Theater Brothers podcast. Make sure to visit our website, theaterofothers.org, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. A special thank you to Purple Planet for the music you've heard. The Theater of Others creates a shared community of artists and audiences for the purposes of exploring the most profound issues of our lives and times. We believe the play watches the audience. The audience is necessary, and they are witness to what happens. And you get to be witness to us making that happen. The purpose of this podcast is to open up our process and let you in. We're peeling back the curtain, so to speak, and encouraging you to follow along, to ponder, prod, and question, to join us and criticize us if need be. Being a witness is no passive task and requires much from you. Are you up for the journey? Be sure to tune in next week for our next journey.